5050 is a standout K-pop group, and what makes them especially interesting is how quickly they've built a recognizable identity in a very crowded industry. Their music leans heavily into clean melodic hooks, soft but catchy production, and a very polished emotional tone that's easy to connect with on first listen. Even when the arrangements are minimal, they're carefully structured to highlight vocal texture and atmosphere rather than overwhelming instrumentation. What really separates them is how accessible their sound feels without losing detail. Their tracks often sit in that space between pop and R&B, where the focus is on melody, mood, and repeatable chorus lines that stick immediately. That balance is part of why they've been able to gain attention beyond typical K-pop audiences. Overall, they're a group that thrives on strong songwriting and sonic clarity, and their music works because it's both easy to listen to and carefully crafted underneath the surface. 5050 also has a pretty unusual and turbulent group history, which is part of what makes their story stand out. They originally debuted as a 4-member group, but not long after their breakout success. The group was shaken by major internal and legal disputes that led to 3 members leaving. That sudden shift created a lot of uncertainty around the group's future, especially since they had already started gaining international attention. Instead of disbanding completely, the group was later rebuilt with new members added alongside the remaining lineup, effectively restarting the group's identity while still keeping the original name. That kind of restructuring is relatively rare in K-pop, where groups usually either stay intact or fully rebrand when major lineup changes happen. As a result, 5050 exists in an unusual position where the name carries both continuity and reinvention at the same time. The current lineup represents a second chapter of the group, shaped by a completely different set of members, dynamics, and creative direction compared to the original debut era. It makes their story less linear than most groups and more like an evolving project, where the identity of the group is tied more to the brand and sound than to a fixed set of members. The current version of 5050 feels like a reset rather than just a continuation, and that makes the group interesting in a very different way compared to their original debut era. With new members introduced and the lineup reshaped, the group's identity has shifted into something more like a rebuilt project rather than a static lineup. That naturally changes how their music and image are received, since audiences are no longer just tracking continuity, but also evaluating how the group evolves after a major restructuring. What stands out about the newer iteration is how it has the challenge of establishing its own chemistry and sound identity, while still carrying the weight of an already recognizable name. That balance between legacy and reinvention is not easy for any group, especially in K-pop where branding and member identity are tightly linked. At the same time, this kind of transition often forces a clearer artistic direction. With a refreshed lineup, there's an opportunity to redefine vocal distribution, concept execution, and overall group dynamic in a way that isn't constrained by the original formation. So rather than viewing it as simply old versus new, it can also be seen as 2 distinct phases of the same project, each shaped by different circumstances, creative decisions, and group chemistry. Among their songs, Starry Night and Gravity stand out as the strongest picks depending on what mood you're drawn to. Starry Night leans into a more atmospheric, dreamy sound, built around a soft melodic progression and an airy production style. It has that late-night, reflective quality where the focus is less on intensity and more on creating a floating emotional space. The track works because it doesn't try to overwhelm the listener. Instead, it settles into a consistent mood and lets the vocals carry most of the emotional weight. Gravity, on the other hand, feels more grounded and structured. It has a stronger sense of forward motion with a clearer emotional arc and a more defined build in its arrangement. There's a slightly heavier emotional tone to it, with the production emphasizing tension and release more directly. It feels more structured in its progression, which gives it a different kind of replay value. Together, the 2 songs show 2 sides of the group's musical identity. One focused on atmosphere and softness, and the other on emotional structure and momentum. Both work well, just in different ways depending on whether you're looking for something more immersive or something more driven. If you're looking at the original lineup, Cupid is clearly the standout track and the one that defined the group on a global scale. It's their most recognizable and commercially successful song, and a big part of that comes from how simple and effective its core concept is. The production is clean and minimal, built around a soft, retro-inspired pop sound that makes it instantly accessible, even on first listen. It doesn't rely on heavy instrumentation or complex structure. Instead, it leans into repetition, melody, and a very direct emotional theme. What really made Cupid take off was how easily it translated across audiences outside of K-pop's usual core fanbase. The hook is extremely memorable, the arrangement is light and digestible, and the overall tone feels universal rather than genre-specific. That combination helped it spread far beyond typical industry boundaries and become a breakout moment for the group internationally. Compared to their other songs from the original lineup, Cupid is the one that most clearly captures their identity at that time, which is why it remains both their most popular track and the one most closely associated with their early success. Cupid really did blow up in a way that few K-pop tracks manage, especially for a relatively new group at the time. What started as a standard release gradually turned into a viral breakout moment, largely driven by how widely it spread across short-form video platforms. The song's chorus is instantly recognizable, and its soft, catchy production made it extremely easy to use in edits, trends, and background audio for content. That kind of organic repetition helped it reach audiences far beyond traditional K-pop listeners. As momentum built, the track essentially became a global sleeper hit, charting internationally and gaining attention in markets where the group hadn't yet established a strong presence. A big part of its success came from its simplicity. It doesn't rely on heavy concepts or complex visuals, just a clean melodic hook that sticks immediately. So when people say Cupid popped off, it's not just exaggeration. It genuinely became a breakout moment that pushed 50/50 into global visibility and defined their early identity in the industry. There's always a certain level of anticipation whenever 50/50 announce a new comeback, especially given how much the group's identity has evolved over time. Because the lineup and direction have gone through major changes, each comeback doesn't just feel like a continuation of what came before, but more like a chance to see what version of the group is being presented next. That uncertainty actually adds to the interest, since every release has the potential to shift their sound, concept, or overall image in a noticeable way. At the same time, comebacks in general are where K-pop groups tend to refine or redefine their musical identity, and 50/50 is in a position where that process is especially visible. New releases become moments to observe how the group's vocal blend, production style, and conceptual direction are developing under the current lineup. So rather than just being routine music releases, each comeback carries a sense of progression and recalibration. It's a chance to see how the group is evolving in real time, which is part of what makes following them feel dynamic rather than static. 50/50 is way better than Sword Art Online. The show often comes across as structurally and narratively underdeveloped, with pacing and writing choices that undermine its potential premise. At its core, the concept is strong. Players trapped in a VR MMO where death in-game means death in real life is an immediately compelling survival scenario. However, the execution rapidly loses tension after the initial arc. Instead of consistently exploring the psychological, social, and systemic consequences of being trapped in a death game, the story repeatedly shifts into loosely connected subplots that dilute its central premise. The stakes that should feel existential become episodic and emotionally uneven, which weakens engagement. A major issue is the writing's reliance on convenience-driven progression. The protagonist, Kirito, is frequently positioned as unusually competent without sufficient narrative justification. His rapid skill acquisition, repeated hidden power reveals, and near-constant ability to outperform established systems reduce meaningful conflict. Instead of tension arising from uncertainty or limitation, outcomes often feel predecided, which erodes suspense. Characterization is also inconsistent. Many side characters are introduced with potentially interesting setups but are quickly sidelined or flattened into functional roles. Emotional beats are often told rather than earned, with relationships forming or resolving at a pace that feels dictated by plot necessity rather than organic development. This contributes to a sense that the story is moving through required story checkpoints, rather than evolving naturally. The tonal shifts are another weakness. The series frequently oscillates between high-stakes survival drama, slice-of-life romance, and melodramatic interpersonal conflict without sufficient narrative bridging. These transitions can feel abrupt, reducing the emotional coherence of arcs. In some cases, serious themes are introduced: trauma, death, agency, identity in virtual worlds, but are not explored with the depth they demand, instead being resolved quickly or overshadowed by action-oriented plot resolution. Antagonists also tend to be underwritten. Many function more as obstacles than fully realized characters, with motivations that are either simplistic or revealed too late to meaningfully reframe earlier events. This further contributes to the sense that conflicts exist primarily to move the protagonist forward rather than to explore thematic ideas in depth. Overall, the series often prioritizes spectacle, romantic subplots, and power escalation over consistent thematic exploration or tightly constructed storytelling. As a result, despite an intriguing premise, it can feel repetitive, shallow in its character work, and structurally uneven, which is likely why some viewers find it boring or unsatisfying over time. The MMO elements in Sword Art Online are often portrayed in a way that feels superficial or inconsistently applied, especially when compared to how actual MMORPG systems function or how deeply the genre could be explored. At a basic level, the world building of Aincrad and later game settings introduces MMO-like structures, levels, skills, bosses, guilds, and progression systems, but these mechanics are rarely treated as fully systemic. Instead, they function more like set dressing for a single-player action narrative. The MMO layer exists visually and structurally, but it doesn't behave like a living, player-driven ecosystem in any meaningful sense. One of the most noticeable issues is the lack of systemic interdependence between players. In real MMOs, progression is heavily shaped by cooperation, economy, role specialization, and emergent social systems. In Sword Art Online, however, progression is overwhelmingly centered on individual capability, particularly Kirito's, which undermines the MMO premise. Guilds and parties exist, but they rarely feel like functioning social or economic units that influence the world state. Instead, they serve as temporary narrative devices rather than persistent systems with consequences. The in-game economy is also underdeveloped. Currency, item drops, crafting, and trade are referenced, but they are not meaningfully integrated into the narrative tension. There is little exploration of inflation, resource scarcity, market manipulation, or player-driven economies, all of which would naturally arise in a closed, survival-based MMO. As a result, the world feels economically static, even though it is supposedly a long-term closed system where resources and power should be intensely contested. Combat mechanics are similarly simplified. While skills and weapons are given terminology and visual effects, fights rarely reflect deeper MMO mechanics like cooldown management, aggro control, party composition strategy, or terrain exploitation in a systemic way. Battles often resolve through reflexes, unique skills, or narrative momentum rather than through clearly defined rule-based interaction between game systems. Another major limitation is the underutilization of player psychology in MMO environments. Real MMOs create complex social dynamics, griefing, reputation systems, guild politics, trust economies, and coordination problems. Sword Art Online occasionally gestures toward these ideas, but it does not consistently integrate them into the core narrative. The result is a world that should feel socially chaotic and systemically rich but instead feels oddly streamlined, as if most emergent behavior has been filtered out to maintain narrative focus. Even the death game premise, which should intensify MMO mechanics dramatically, is not fully leveraged. In a real system under existential threat, players would likely develop highly optimized survival economies, rigid class roles, and large-scale political structures. The story instead tends to focus on small groups and individual heroism, which further diminishes the MMO simulation aspect. Overall, the MMO elements feel like a thematic wrapper rather than a deeply simulated system. They provide surface-level familiarity for genre recognition, but they rarely influence the narrative in a way that reflects the complexity, unpredictability, and social depth that define actual MMORPG environments. The mythology elements in Sword Art Online often feel inconsistent, underdeveloped, and structurally disconnected from both the setting and the rules of the world, which makes them difficult to take seriously as coherent world-building rather than aesthetic borrowing. One of the core issues is that mythology in Sword Art Online is not used as a structured system of internal lore or symbolic framework. Instead, it tends to appear as surface-level naming conventions, thematic motifs, or occasional high-concept framing devices that are not meaningfully integrated into the game world logic. Terms, abilities, and boss designs may reference mythological archetypes, but those references rarely carry consistent narrative weight or explanatory power within the universe itself. A deeper problem is the lack of internal consistency between mythological framing and the technological premise of the series. Sword Art Online is fundamentally grounded in VR technology and game system architecture, yet it frequently introduces quasi-mystical or mythic interpretations of game mechanics without clearly reconciling them with the underlying code-based reality of the world. This creates tonal and conceptual ambiguity. At times, abilities feel like emergent software behavior, and at other times they are presented with almost supernatural significance. The result is a hybrid system that doesn't fully commit to either interpretation, weakening both. In well-constructed fantasy or science fantasy systems, mythological elements typically serve a function. They either explain the metaphysics of the world, reinforce thematic meaning, or provide a consistent symbolic language that enhances immersion. In Sword Art Online, however, mythological references often feel interchangeable. Bosses, skills, and legendary concepts are introduced with mythic naming, but without a corresponding depth of cultural or in-world history that would justify their significance. This makes them feel externally imposed rather than organically developed within the world's own logic. Another issue is that mythology is sometimes used as shorthand for importance rather than earned narrative weight. Instead of building mythological significance through in-world history, player experience, or systemic consequences, the story often labels something as legendary, divine, or ancient tier and expects that framing to carry emotional or conceptual impact on its own. Without supporting narrative infrastructure, these labels lose meaning and become decorative rather than functional. The series also struggles with integrating mythology into its game systems in a way that feels coherent. In a believable MMO framework, mythological elements could be reframed as rare data constructs, hidden quest lines, developer artifacts, or emergent properties of complex systems. Sword Art Online occasionally gestures toward this kind of explanation, but it rarely commits to a consistent interpretation. As a result, mythological elements drift between being just game mechanics, lore artifacts, and almost supernatural forces, depending on narrative convenience. This inconsistency is especially noticeable when mythological framing is used to elevate stakes. When the narrative suddenly invokes godlike powers, ancient relic analogs, or transcendent digital phenomena without properly building toward them through established rules, it creates a sense of arbitrary escalation. Instead of feeling like the natural outcome of a well-structured world, these moments can feel like narrative shortcuts designed to inject grandeur into situations that the underlying system does not actually support. Ultimately, the mythology elements in Sword Art Online feel like aesthetic layering rather than integrated world building. They borrow the language of myth to add weight and spectacle, but they do not consistently build a coherent internal mythology that is supported by the game systems, the narrative logic, or the technological framework of the setting. This disconnect weakens immersion and contributes to the broader sense that the world operates on shifting rules rather than a stable conceptual foundation. Let's talk about why Sword Art Online would actually be a lot better if Kirito was black. There's been a lot of race swapping in movies and TV lately. Snape is black now. Cleopatra is black. Elle from Death Note is black. Annabeth from the Percy Jackson Show is black. Helen of Troy is black. Every few months the internet finds a new character to argue about. And it got me thinking, what if you took that idea and applied it to anime? More specifically, what if Sword Art Online had a black main character instead of a Japanese one? What if Kirito was black? Because the more I thought about it, the more it actually started to make sense. Not just for representation, but for the story itself, the way people react to Kirito, and even the themes of Sword Art Online as a whole. And weirdly enough, I think it could have made the show better. Honestly, almost anything would make Sword Art Online better because the original show is a mess. But making Kirito black would actually fix one of the dumbest things in the series right away. His nickname is the Black Swordsman. And no, they don't mean his outfit. That's such a weak explanation. Nothing about him says Black Swordsman. The title sounds way cooler than the actual character. But if Kirito was actually black, suddenly the nickname hits way harder. Now it sounds intimidating. Now it sounds memorable. Now when people hear the Black Swordsman, they instantly know who they're talking about. It goes from sounding random to sounding legendary. And let's be real for a second. The whole Black Swordsman thing in Sword Art Online always felt like a Berserk reference anyway. It's basically discount Guts. Except with Guts, the title actually means something. He looks intimidating, he acts intimidating, and the name fits the character perfectly. Kirito just wears a black coat and suddenly everybody starts calling him the Black Swordsman. Like it's supposed to be the coldest nickname ever created. But if Kirito was actually black, the title would instantly make more sense. At that point, it stops feeling like a random anime nickname and starts feeling tied to who he is. It's the same reason Black Panther works. The name matches the character. Imagine if T'Challa was just some random Japanese dude. The title would sound weird immediately. So why does nobody question the Black Swordsman when the guy is just a Japanese teenager with anxiety and a trench coat? Making Kirito black would actually make the nickname feel natural instead of sounding like a Walmart version of Berserk. It would just make Sword Art Online stand out more. Anime already has 1 million Japanese teenage protagonists. Black hair, quiet personality, antisocial, secretly overpowered. You've seen this exact dude 1,000 times before. Kirito barely even has a personality outside of guy who is good at video games. So making him black would instantly make him feel more unique without even changing the story that much. And before people get mad, I'm not saying every anime needs race swapping. I'm saying Sword Art Online specifically is such a generic and forgettable series that it actually benefits from having something different. Because think about it. How many famous black anime protagonists are there really? Not side characters. Not comic relief characters. Actual main characters in a huge mainstream anime. There really aren't that many. So now suddenly Sword Art Online becomes one of the few giant anime franchises with a black lead character. That alone makes it more memorable. And honestly, it even fits the whole outsider vibe Kirito already has in the story. He's supposed to be isolated, different from everyone else, someone who never fully fits in. Making him black would visually reinforce that idea immediately instead of just having every character look the exact same except for different hairstyles. It would also make certain parts of Sword Art Online story feel more grounded. Kirito is constantly written as an outcast. He plays alone, he avoids guilds, and most players either misunderstand him or don't trust him at first. But in the actual show, that outsider feeling is mostly told to us, not really shown. Visually, he looks the same as everyone else. Same general anime design, same age range, same everything. If Kirito was black, that difference would be immediately visible in a world where almost everyone else looks identical. It would naturally reinforce why people notice him, talk about him, or even misunderstand him. It doesn't have to be exaggerated or turned into the main conflict. It just adds a layer that is already missing. Right now, the idea that he is an outcast mostly comes from how he behaves. But if he also looks different from most players, then the reaction from other characters starts to feel more believable on screen. It's a simple change, but it makes the social dynamics in the game feel less abstract and more real. Sure, some people are going to argue that making Kirito black doesn't fit the source material. But here's the thing. Sword Art Online isn't a historical documentary. None of these events actually happened, and Kirito isn't a real person. Adaptations change things all the time. Character designs, personalities, timelines, even entire story arcs. That's called creative license. Acting like altering the appearance of a fictional anime character somehow violates reality itself is a little dramatic. At the end of the day, Kirito is a fictional character, not a real historical figure. There's no universal rule saying he absolutely has to remain one exact ethnicity forever in every adaptation. Live-action remakes reinterpret characters all the time depending on the creative direction, actors available, and audience they're targeting. So the idea of reimagining Kirito as black really isn't some impossible concept people make it out to be. It's just another creative interpretation of a fictional character from Sword Art Online. If people are already willing to accept reinterpretations like a Black Severus Snape in the upcoming Harry Potter adaptation, then why should Kirito be treated as untouchable? Both are fictional characters from fantasy stories, not historical figures bound by real-world accuracy. Adaptations constantly reinvent characters for new audiences, so acting like this would somehow ruin Sword Art Online feels a little overdramatic. And since Sword Art Online has already had a very negative reception in parts of its story and adaptations, a live-action version has an opportunity to do something fresh rather than just strictly copying what's already been done. A reinterpretation of characters and tone could be a chance to improve or reimagine aspects of the story for a new audience, instead of treating it as something that has to be replicated exactly as is. A lot of people already have negative feelings about the original portrayal of Kirito in Sword Art Online, so a live-action adaptation could be an opportunity to reimagine the character in a way that feels fresh and better aligned with a new creative direction. Ultimately, what matters most is whether the performance and writing make the character compelling and engaging for a modern audience. Let's be honest, a lot of the outrage over making Kirito black feels less about protecting the source material and more about people being uncomfortable with diversity in the first place. Fans accept changes to plots, powers, and character details all the time, but suddenly skin color becomes the one unacceptable change? At some point, people need to grow up and recognize that fictional characters can be reimagined in different ways without it being the end of the world. Sword Art Online takes place in a modern setting, so it makes sense for adaptations or reinterpretations to reflect the diversity of the world we live in today. It's not a story set in some isolated ancient society where only one culture or ethnicity existed. The series is already built around futuristic technology, global gaming culture, and virtual worlds, so the idea that every character interpretation has to remain visually identical forever feels pretty arbitrary. Another argument people bring up is that the story takes place in Japan, so the characters should be Japanese. And sure, that logic makes sense on the surface. But some people talk about Japan as if it's completely ethnically uniform, when in reality Black Japanese people exist too. Japan, like most modern countries, has multicultural communities and people from a wide range of backgrounds. So the idea that a Black interpretation of a character automatically doesn't belong in a modern Japanese setting feels like a pretty narrow view of what Japan actually looks like today. We already know that Netflix is involved with the Sword Art Online live-action adaptation, and this wouldn't exactly be new territory for them. As mentioned earlier, they've already made casting changes with Japanese characters in other live-action adaptations before. A major example is Elle from the Death Note movie adaptation, who was portrayed by Lakeith Stanfield. So whether people like those decisions or not, it's clear that Netflix has already shown they're willing to reinterpret characters differently rather than strictly copying every visual detail from the original anime or manga. People are inevitably going to complain that it's woke, but honestly, that word gets thrown at basically any casting decision involving diversity at this point. A lot of the backlash tends to come before people have even seen a trailer, performance, or actual interpretation of the character. At the end of the day, what really matters is whether the actor can capture the personality, presence, and emotional core of the character, not whether every visual detail matches an anime design frame for frame. Additionally, here's an analysis of the Cupid music video that highlights how its visual language and narrative structure reinforce the song's central themes while also subverting conventional pop aesthetics in subtle but deliberate ways. At a surface level, the video presents a stylized, pastel-heavy visual environment that aligns with contemporary hyperpop visual trends. The use of soft lighting, exaggerated color palettes, and deliberately artificial-looking set pieces immediately establishes a space that feels emotionally heightened but physically unreal. This artificiality is not incidental. It mirrors the lyrical tension of the song, which centers on unreciprocated affection, emotional imbalance, and the frustration of desire that is not returned in equal measure. A key interpretive layer of the video lies in its treatment of romantic symbolism, particularly the figure of Cupid as a mythological shorthand for love and emotional fate. Rather than presenting Cupid as a coherent narrative character, the video fragments the idea into visual motifs, arrows, heart imagery, staged interactions, suggesting that love in this context is less a divine or meaningful force and more a repetitive, mechanical system that produces inconsistent outcomes. This reframing strips the mythological figure of its traditional authority and replaces it with something closer to emotional randomness or social performance. The choreography and blocking further reinforce this dynamic. Characters often occupy shared spaces without achieving emotional synchronization, creating a visual pattern of proximity without connection. This is particularly effective in group scenes where synchronized movement contrasts with lyrical content about emotional asymmetry, producing a deliberate dissonance between what is seen and what is felt. The effect is to emphasize isolation even within visually connected compositions. From a narrative standpoint, the video avoids linear storytelling in favor of cyclical or vignette-based structure. Scenes repeat with slight variations, suggesting emotional repetition rather than progression. This aligns with the thematic idea of returning to the same emotional state, wanting reciprocity, failing to achieve it, and restarting the cycle. The lack of resolution is not a narrative failure but a thematic choice that reflects the stagnation described in the lyrics. There is also a noticeable tension between sincerity and stylization. While the subject matter, romantic longing and emotional vulnerability, could be presented in a grounded or intimate manner, the video instead filters these emotions through exaggerated aesthetics and performative gestures. This creates a dual reading. On one hand, it reflects the performative nature of modern romantic expression in media-saturated environments. On the other, it distances the viewer from direct emotional identification, forcing interpretation through symbolism rather than empathy alone. Overall, the Cupid music video operates as a semiotic extension of the song's themes rather than a literal illustration of its lyrics. Its use of artificial aesthetics, fragmented mythological imagery, and cyclical structure collectively constructs a depiction of love as unstable, mediated, and structurally unbalanced, rather than romanticized or resolved.
Prepare to step into the world of 50/50 as we take a closer look at the music video for Cupid. From layered symbolism and lyrical clues to the dreamy storytelling, this breakdown uncovers the hidden meaning behind every scene. It begins with a striking close-up of a metronome, its steady back-and-forth motion instantly pulling you into the rhythm of the scene. The sharp clicking echoes like a heartbeat, establishing an emotional pulse before a single member appears or the melody fully unfolds. In these opening moments, time itself becomes tangible, setting the tone with a quiet but powerful sense of anticipation. More than just a detail, the metronome symbolizes routine and repetition, yet the heartbeat layered within it introduces themes of love and longing. Right from the start, the story ties timing to emotion, suggesting a story driven by waiting, expectation, and the delicate rhythm of feelings rather than explosive passion. The metronome stops without warning. The clicking cuts out completely, and the silence that follows feels deliberate and tense. Then the song begins. This pause marks a clear transition from mechanical time to emotional time. The heartbeat-like rhythm disappears, replaced by music that signals a shift in the story's direction. That break in rhythm suggests that the sense of order and expectation can no longer continue. It feels like a moment where control slips and emotions take over. By using silence before the music enters, the song hints that this is not a story of smooth, steady love, but one shaped by interruption, imbalance, and feelings that no longer move in perfect time. It shifts to the four members, each placed in a different setting, separated rather than together. One sits alone in a cluttered bedroom filled with personal details, creating an intimate but restless atmosphere. Another walks through a quiet hotel hallway, a space that feels temporary and emotionally detached. Elsewhere, a member lingers inside a fortune-telling shop, studying tarot cards as if searching for clarity in love. The final scene shows a member dining alone at a restaurant, surrounded by people, yet clearly isolated. These locations highlight a shared emotional thread. Even though they are experiencing similar feelings, each person faces them in solitude. The environments emphasize uncertainty, waiting, and the quiet distance that runs beneath the story. The lyric, "Not at all romantic all my life," states the emotion plainly, like a confession. There is no sense of excitement or fantasy in the line. Instead, it carries disappointment and emotional exhaustion, as if the speaker has grown tired of believing in romance. Paired with the scenes of the members alone in separate spaces, the lyric feels especially grounded. It solidifies the idea that the song is not praising love, but examining it with doubt. Romance is presented as something distant and unfulfilled, stripped of its usual magic and idealism. The lyric, "All around me is a lovely day," creates a clear contrast between the bright world outside and the emotions the members carry within. Their surroundings appear warm and pleasant, yet their expressions and solitude tell a different story. Even in calm, inviting spaces, each member remains alone, emphasizing the sense that love and happiness exist nearby but never fully reach them. Rather than participating in romance, they seem to watch it from a distance. The messy room strengthens this feeling. Scattered items and a lack of order reflect a restless emotional state, as if her thoughts are tangled and unresolved. Instead of comfort or stability, the space feels heavy and overwhelming, turning the environment into a reflection of how love has left her unsettled rather than fulfilled. The lyric, "Arrow sign reflected in my eyes," suggests a quiet awareness of love that never fully becomes real. The arrow, a familiar symbol of Cupid and romance, appears only as a reflection rather than something tangible. This detail implies that love is recognized sight-wise and intellectually, yet remains emotionally distant. By presenting romance as an image instead of a direct experience, the song supports the feeling that connection exists just out of reach. Love is something she can see and understand, but not truly hold on to, strengthening the theme of longing that runs through the story. The repeated line, "Oh why, oh why, oh why, oh why," turns into a direct interrogation of her relationship with love. What might initially sound soft or hopeful quickly feels worn down, as if the question has been asked too many times without an answer. The repetition creates a loop, suggesting she is emotionally stuck, unable to move forward. Each why adds weight, building frustration and disbelief. Rather than longing for romance, she's questioning why love continues to fail her, stressing the idea that love here is confusing, draining, and unresolved. Between the quieter, isolated scenes, it cuts to moments of the members dancing in the middle of the street. This placement feels deliberate. A street is a space meant for movement and decision, yet they stand at its center, exposed and uncertain. The choreography, usually associated with freedom or joy, feels restrained in this setting. It reflects hesitation and emotional limbo, as if they are caught between wanting to believe in love and no longer trusting it. The lyric, "I'm feeling lonely," states plainly what the scenes have been suggesting all along. It's a simple, honest confession. After scenes showing the members isolated in separate spaces and paused in the middle of the street, this line makes it clear that their distance is emotional as well as physical. Surrounded by people, places, and movement, they still feel alone. In the choreography, the members make small gestures with their index fingers while keeping their thumbs raised. These movements are small and hesitant rather than bold, evoking shyness, nervousness, or quiet awkwardness, especially in moments that suggest gentle, restrained flirting. This gesture, often seen in anime, conveys uncertainty and emotional hesitation. By including it, the choreography solidifies the song's message. The members desire connection, but their longing is tempered by doubt and discomfort rather than confidence. The lyric, "Stop glancing and tell me, hold me," comes across as a plea rather than a typical romantic line. It expresses a desire for honesty and directness. Glancing implies hesitation or avoidance, as if emotions are being held back, while the request for physical closeness signals a need for reassurance. The line conveys a longing for clarity, comfort, and genuine connection, showing that the speaker wants to be chosen openly rather than admired from afar. The line, "Again crying in my room, I want to hide it," highlights the private and repetitive nature of her sadness. Crying alone suggests that these emotions are kept hidden from others, and the repetition indicates this isn't the first time. The desire to hide it reflects shame and vulnerability, showing that the struggle with love is quiet. She is shown sitting alone at a restaurant at night. The space, typically associated with company and conversation, feels empty and quiet, emphasizing her sense of being out of place. Her hesitation and lingering suggest uncertainty and discomfort, as if she's waiting for something that never comes. The scene supports the song's ongoing themes of emotional hesitation, loneliness, and the quiet struggle of longing. The lines, "Say what you say, but I want it more," and "But still I want it more, more," reveal an ongoing inner conflict in the song. Despite disappointment and doubt, the desire for love remains strong. The lyrics acknowledge that logic and past experience cannot erase this longing. Even knowing that love has let her down, she continues to want it, and the repetition of "more" underscores the intensity and persistence of that feeling. It shows that the desire for love is instinctive and emotional, even when it seems unreasonable or painful. In a metaphor, the girl is shown trying to win a prize from a claw machine, only to fail. The prize is close and visible, yet always just out of reach, reflecting how love can feel attainable in theory but unreachable in reality. The claw machine emphasizes the lack of control. Effort alone does not guarantee success, cementing the idea that love is deeply desired but cannot be secured. Her reaction after failing is quietly heavy. The sadness is palpable, showing that the loss affects her more than the game itself. It represents her unmet hopes and emotional disappointment. This scene turns abstract longing into something tangible, illustrating how repeated setbacks in love can weigh heavily, even in small, everyday moments. The line, "I gave a second chance to Cupid," shows that, despite past disappointment, she is willing to believe in love again. Cupid, as a symbol of romance and fate, represents both risk and hope. By giving him another chance, she opens herself to vulnerability, knowing there's a possibility of being hurt. The lyric captures the cycle of doubt and desire that runs through the song. Despite previous letdowns, she chooses to try again, illustrating how hard it is to completely give up on love. In mythology, Cupid is the Roman god of love and desire, usually depicted as a winged youth with a bow and arrows. When he strikes someone, they fall in love suddenly, often without control or choice. This makes him a symbol of love's unpredictability and power. His arrows can bring both joy and pain, emphasizing that romance is often accidental and sometimes unfair, rather than planned or stable. The line, "I believed you, I'm so stupid," is blunt and self-critical, expressing regret for trusting love again despite knowing the risks. Calling herself stupid isn't literal, it's emotional, reflecting embarrassment and frustration at hoping when experience suggested otherwise. This lyric shows how deeply the disappointment cuts. She is hurt not just by love itself, but by her own choice to believe in it again. The girl watches another couple who seem happy together. Their closeness highlights what she feels she is missing, intensifying her loneliness. The scene conveys quiet envy and sadness rather than anger. Their happiness becomes a mirror for her own unmet desire for love. She wears a ring on her middle finger, signaling a focus on self and personal balance rather than romance. In many styles, middle finger rings suggest independence and confidence, contrasting with the romantic symbolism of a ring finger. The camera keeps the ring visible during softer moments, showing that the story is as much about self-awareness and emotional growth as it is about crushes and longing. The way it catches light in close-ups reminds viewers that the narrative is about identity, learning, and navigating feelings. The rhyme between Cupid and stupid intensifies the lyric, linking love and self-blame. What could feel playful or romantic becomes sharp and bitter, showing how hope can quickly turn to regret. Singing the words in English makes them stand out, giving the line a blunt, almost sarcastic edge. This language choice highlights the sudden clarity of her disappointment, emphasizing that her frustration with love is direct, unmistakable, and emotionally sharp. The line, "Let me show you my secret love, is it real?" captures both vulnerability and hesitation. Describing her feelings as a secret suggests they have been carefully hidden, protected from others. She wants to share them, yet doubts whether they are genuine or worth revealing. The question at the end signals uncertainty rather than confidence, showing that even as she opens up, she worries her emotions might not be real or lasting. It reflects the fear of exposing feelings while still questioning their validity. The line, "Cupid is so dumb," carries a playful tone, but it's layered with frustration. By calling Cupid dumb, she shifts the blame from herself onto love itself. Cupid, the figure meant to guide romance, has failed her once again. The lyric mixes disappointment with sarcasm, showing that instead of seeing love as wise or reliable, she now views it as careless and unpredictable. It reflects a weakening belief in romance, where hope has given way to irritation. The set design amplifies this moment by placing the members in a dark, empty space that feels detached from any real-world location. Even though they are together, the void around them creates a strong sense of isolation. Above them, glowing neon signs, including the phrase, "Cupid is so dumb," stand out sharply against the darkness, making the words feel loud and inescapable. The contrast mirrors their feelings about love. Romance is reduced to bold, almost performative symbols, while true emotional connection remains absent. The set turns their frustration into a statement, showing that love has become more ironic and distant than sincere. When the girl stabs her fork into the stack of pancakes, the action feels sharp and aggressive against the soft, sweet food in front of her. Pancakes usually suggest comfort and warmth, but her movement turns them into a site of tension. This small, everyday gesture reveals how her frustration seeps out. Rather than expressing her emotions directly, they emerge through this pointed action, showing that love, which is typically gentle and comforting, has become a source of irritation and emotional release. At the fortune-telling shop, the girl reveals her tarot cards in a deliberately ordered sequence. The first card, the Fool, represents new beginnings, curiosity, and stepping into the unknown. In the context of the story, it reflects the early stage of a crush, light, hopeful, and slightly uncertain, setting a mood of innocence and emotional risk. Next appears the Three of Swords, a card associated with heartbreak, distance, and emotional pain. The transition from the Fool to this card suggests that the excitement of love can lead to confusion or disappointment. The scene handles this shift gently rather than dramatically, making it relatable and showing that romantic growth often involves small struggles. Finally, the Sun appears, bringing warmth, clarity, and growth. Ending the reading with this card shifts the tone toward hope and self-discovery. The sequence mirrors the arc of the song itself, from dreamy curiosity through emotional challenge to a brighter understanding of love and self-confidence. Her reaction to the Sun is joyful. She kisses the card, emphasizing her desire to hold on to hope. The gesture is playful yet sincere, matching the soft, dreamy tone of the song. It signals that she chooses optimism over fear, seeking clarity and reassurance after the tension of the previous cards. The moment adds personality and emotional depth. By showing her response, the tarot reading becomes more than symbolic. It becomes personal. The kiss transforms the Sun into a sign of comfort, self-belief, and the desire for a brighter chapter ahead, highlighting her hopefulness despite earlier uncertainty. The lyrics, floating in daydreams, every day, when I wake up, all flew away, convey that her feelings exist more in her imagination than in reality. The lines create a soft, dreamy mood, but there's an underlying sadness. She builds romantic scenarios in her mind, only to find that reality feels empty once the fantasy disappears. Rather than being confident about romance, she appears unsure, caught in a cycle of dreaming, hoping, and then feeling let down. The experience feels relatable, capturing the universal feeling of imagining a perfect love that doesn't match real life. During this section, all the girls are together in her room, creating a warm, playful atmosphere. Instead of confronting their feelings alone, they gather as a group, discussing ways to find love. The cozy, personal setting, along with small gestures and shared reactions, makes the moment feel authentic. Their energy conveys curiosity more than certainty, as if they are trying to solve a mystery they do not fully understand yet. The idea of making a plan adds a lighthearted tone. Young love becomes almost like a game, with friends offering advice and imagining outcomes. This contrasts with the earlier lyrics about daydreams fading, showing them trying to turn imagination into action. The group dynamic emphasizes friendship as a support system, highlighting that even when romance is confusing, they rely on each other for comfort and courage. Placing everyone in one space grounds the story. The room becomes a safe place to laugh, share ideas, and express hopes honestly. Rather than showing perfect confidence, the scene captures a mix of excitement and uncertainty. It suggests that their journey isn't just about romance. It's also about growing together and learning from one another along the way. The The lines, "Waiting around is a waste. To be honest, it's easier this way," reveal her attempt to shield herself from disappointment. Rather than lingering in uncertainty or hoping someone notices her, she begins to see distance as a safer choice. The words carry a calm, measured tone, suggesting she's persuading herself that avoiding deep feelings is the wiser path. The lyrics reflect a more realistic perspective on love. She may be tired of guessing, waiting for signals, or risking heartbreak, so she chooses emotional distance. This doesn't mean she has stopped caring. It highlights the inner conflict between wanting romance and seeking peace of mind. The line contrasts with the softer, playful scenes. While the scenes retain a lighthearted feel, the message underneath introduces hesitation and self-awareness. It suggests that pursuing love can be exhausting, highlighting the theme that romance is not only sweet and dreamy but also complicated enough to make someone step back and question whether it's worth the effort. The line, "Will it be thrilling like an imagination?" shows her questioning the gap between fantasy and reality. Up to this point, much of her emotional experience has been shaped by dreams and expectations, so the lyric feels like a moment of honest doubt. She wonders if real love can ever live up to the excitement she has imagined. This question adds vulnerability to the story. Rather than sounding confident, she admits uncertainty about what love will actually feel like. The word "thrilling" suggests she desires something magical and intense, yet the tone conveys doubt that real life can match that ideal. It emphasizes the tension between romantic ideals and actual experience. In the song, the line also reflects the playful, slightly awkward energy of the girls. Their daydreams and plans feel big and colorful, but this lyric grounds the moment in reality. It suggests that part of growing up is learning that imagination can inspire hope, while real emotions develop more slowly and unpredictably. During this part, the girl is also holding up the Fool tarot card. This shows that she's standing at the beginning of an emotional journey. The Fool often represents curiosity, innocence, and the courage to step into something unknown, which matches the unsure tone of the lyric. Will it be thrilling like an imagination? She seems excited about love, yet she is still learning what it truly means. The image of the Fool can also highlight her willingness to take a risk. Even if she does not fully understand where her feelings will lead, she is open to the experience. Holding the card draws attention to the symbolism. It reminds the viewer that her story is not only about romance, but also about personal growth. The Fool suggests that mistakes, surprises, and new emotions are all part of the process, solidifying the theme of young love as a journey filled with curiosity and self-discovery. The lines, "Now I'm so lonely. I practiced in my dream every day, kiss me," reveal a more vulnerable side of her emotions. The word lonely shifts the mood from playful curiosity to quiet longing. Even though she spends time imagining romance, there's a sense that those feelings are not being returned in real life. The lyric connects back to the theme of daydreams, showing how practice in her imagination becomes a way to cope with distance and uncertainty. Saying that she practiced in her dream suggests that love still feels like something unreal to her. Instead of real experience, she relies on fantasy to prepare herself for affection. This adds a soft innocence to the story, since she is learning about closeness through hope rather than reality. The repeated phrase "kiss me" feels less demanding and more like a wish spoken into the air, which keeps the tone gentle rather than dramatic. In the song, this moment deepens the emotional contrast. The scenes may stay bright and sweet, but the lyric introduces a layer of quiet sadness beneath the surface. It shows that behind the playful planning and tarot symbolism, there is a girl who truly wants connection and reassurance. This balance between loneliness and hopeful dreaming helps explain why her journey toward love feels both tender and uncertain. During the scene, the girls stand in front of a romantic boutique store and stare at the outfits on display through the window. It shows that they are looking at an image of love that feels beautiful, but slightly out of reach. The soft dresses and styled mannequins represent an ideal version of romance, something polished and perfect compared to their own uncertain feelings. Their expressions carry a quiet sense of envy, as if they want to step into that world, but are not sure how. This moment also reflects the pressure of expectations. The boutique window feels like a fantasy space where love looks effortless and elegant. By placing the girls outside, it creates a gap between real emotions and imagined romance. They admire the display, yet they remain observers, which connects to the lyrics about dreaming more than experiencing. The scene adds another layer to their journey. Instead of directly chasing someone, they first compare themselves to a romantic image shaped by fashion and aesthetics. It suggests that part of growing up is learning the difference between how love looks from the outside and how it actually feels. Their jealousy is gentle rather than harsh, making the moment feel relatable and honest within the soft tone of the song. Some of the lyrics are repeated here. Again, crying in my room, not want to give up. Say what you say, but I want it more. But still I want it more, more, more. This time the line, not want to give up, replaces the earlier line, I want to hide it, which shows a clear emotional shift. Instead of hiding her feelings or pulling away, she starts to sound more determined. The repetition makes the moment feel familiar, yet the small change in words suggests growth in her mindset. Choosing to say that she does not want to give up highlights a stronger sense of persistence. Even though she feels lonely and confused, she admits that her desire for love is still there. The phrase, I want it more, highlights that her feelings are becoming more honest and direct. It shows a move from hesitation toward quiet resolve, as if she is learning to accept her emotions rather than avoid them. This change adds depth to the narrative. The repeated lyrics remind the viewer of past vulnerability, but the updated line reframes the scene with new meaning. It suggests that heartbreak and doubt have not erased her hope. Instead, they push her to keep searching, showing that her journey is not only about dreaming of love, but also about choosing to keep believing in it despite uncertainty. The girls then go into the shop and put on the outfits that they were looking at earlier. This shows a clear shift from watching to acting. Instead of standing outside and comparing themselves to an ideal image of romance, they step into that space and make it their own. The change in setting reflects a change in attitude, where curiosity turns into confidence. Wearing the outfits suggests that they are no longer waiting for love to come to them. The styling becomes a symbol of preparation, as if they are choosing to participate in their own story rather than just imagining it. This moment connects with the stronger lyrics that focus on not giving up, since their actions now match their growing determination. The transformation feels playful, but meaningful. The girls experiment with a new look, which can represent trying new versions of themselves. It shows that they are ready to take initiative and stop being passive observers. By crossing the threshold into the shop, it hints that their journey is moving from fantasy toward real experience and self-expression. The outfits are also black. They change from their colorful, casual clothing into darker looks to show a shift in mood and mindset. Earlier scenes feel bright and playful, but the black styling adds a more serious tone. It suggests that their feelings about love are becoming deeper and more complex rather than just light daydreams. Black clothing can also represent confidence and protection. By choosing these outfits, the girls appear more bold and self-aware, as if they're stepping into a stronger version of themselves. The change hints that they are no longer only hopeful or innocent. They begin to face the emotional risks that come with wanting real connection. The contrast between colorful and black outfits makes the moment stand out. It marks a turning point where fantasy starts to mix with reality. The darker styling does not remove their softness, but it adds maturity to the story. This helps show that their journey toward love includes growth, uncertainty, and the courage to present a new side of themselves. The chorus is repeated here, and its meaning has already been explored earlier, so the focus shifts to the scenes. Now the girls are dancing in the shop window of the romantic boutique store while wearing their new outfits. This shows a strong change in confidence compared to when they first stood outside looking in. Instead of feeling jealous or distant, they place themselves at the center of the display and take control of how they are seen. Dancing in the window turns them into part of the romantic image that they once admired from afar. It suggests that they are no longer waiting for a perfect version of love to appear. They actively step into that fantasy and reshape it with their own personality and energy. The performance feels playful but also bold, as if they are testing a new identity in front of the world. The scene also highlights self-expression rather than approval from others. By moving freely in the display space, they show that confidence can come from within instead of from romance alone. This moment supports the larger theme of growth, where imagination slowly transforms into action and the girls begin to define love on their own terms. The girls then go to a photo booth and take pictures of themselves. This moment shifts the focus away from chasing romance and toward capturing their own identity. Instead of waiting for someone else to notice them, they create memories together, and choose how they want to be seen. The playful poses and close space of the booth highlight their friendship and comfort with each other. Taking photos can also suggest self-reflection. A photo booth freezes small moments in time, which mirrors the theme of learning through experience rather than only dreaming about love. The girls seem more relaxed here, showing that confidence is growing through shared laughter and support rather than through outside validation. The photo strips add a nostalgic and personal feeling to the story. Each snapshot feels like a reminder that their journey is not only about romance but also about self-discovery. The scene suggests that as they move forward, they begin to value their own presence and memories, making their growth feel more genuine and grounded. The lines, "I am so lonely, hold me tightly. I want a thrill who will really love me truly," bring the emotion of the song to the surface in a direct way. The word lonely returns as a central feeling, but now it sounds more honest and open rather than hidden behind playful imagery. Asking to be held tightly shows a desire for comfort and closeness, suggesting that beneath the bright scenes there's a real need for connection. The phrase "I want a thrill" adds another layer to her hopes. She is not only looking for affection but also for excitement and emotional depth. At the same time, saying "truly love me" reveals that she wants something genuine, not just a fantasy that fades when reality appears. This balance between thrill and sincerity reflects her inner conflict between dreaming and wanting something stable. These lines deepen the meaning of the scenes where the girls act more confident and expressive. Even as they laugh and experiment with new looks, the lyrics remind the viewer that their journey is driven by a search for real understanding. It shows that growth does not erase loneliness right away, but it helps them become more honest about what they are truly hoping to find. The lines, "No more waiting, I can't wait. Not believe you now, I'm gonna make it mine," mark one of the most decisive moments in the story. The wording shows a clear break from hesitation as she moves away from passive dreaming and toward direct action. Saying "no more waiting" reflects impatience with uncertainty, suggesting that she is ready to take control of her own feelings instead of hoping for signs or approval. The phrase "not believe you now" can sound like she is rejecting doubt or outside opinions. Earlier scenes show confusion and longing, but this line carries a stronger tone of self-trust. Rather than relying on fate, predictions, or fantasy, she starts to believe in her own ability to shape the outcome. This connects to the shift where the girls step into the boutique, change their styling, and present themselves with more confidence. Ending with "I am gonna make it mine" emphasizes determination. It does not only refer to romance, but also to ownership of her emotions and choices. The lyric suggests growth from innocence to agency, showing that her journey is moving beyond imagination into action. It stresses the theme that love in the song is not just something that happens to her, but something she actively reaches toward with courage and intention. During this part, the girl is also giving flowers to her crush, but she gets rejected and becomes visibly sad. This shows the risk that comes with finally choosing action over imagination. Earlier lyrics express determination and confidence, yet this moment reminds the viewer that taking initiative does not always lead to the outcome she hopes for. The flowers symbolize sincerity and courage, since she openly shares her feelings instead of hiding behind daydreams. The rejection adds emotional weight to the story. It contrasts with the brighter scenes where the girls appear playful and bold, revealing that growth can include disappointment. Her sadness feels quiet rather than dramatic, which makes the moment more relatable. It suggests that even when someone decides to stop waiting and pursue love directly, the experience can still be painful. This scene deepens the theme of learning through real experience. The act of giving flowers shows maturity and honesty, while the rejection highlights that self-confidence does not remove vulnerability. Instead of ending her journey, the moment can be read as part of her emotional growth, where she begins to understand that love involves both courage and resilience. The lines, "Love is a light, I'll show my love is right. It's not a joke, so give it to me right now," bring a strong sense of urgency and conviction to the story. Describing love as a light suggests something guiding and honest, as if she believes her feelings are pure and worth being seen clearly. After moments of doubt and rejection, this lyric sounds like a declaration that her emotions still have value. Saying that it's not a joke shows a shift towards seriousness. Earlier parts of the song carry a dreamy and playful tone, but here she speaks with more certainty. It feels like she wants her feelings to be taken seriously rather than dismissed as a passing crush. The line adds intensity without losing the soft emotional core of the song. The phrase, "so give it to me right now," emphasizes impatience and desire for clarity. She no longer wants to stay in a space of guessing or imagining. Instead, she asks for a real response and a genuine connection. Within the song, this moment reflects her growth from quiet longing to open expression, showing that even after setbacks, she continues to believe that honest love can still shine through. The lines, "no more chance to you," "you know," "hey, dumb boy," introduce a sharper and more direct tone compared to earlier lyrics. Instead of sounding unsure or dreamy, she speaks with clear finality. Saying "no more chance" suggests that she has reached a limit after feeling ignored or hurt, and she chooses to protect her own feelings rather than continue waiting. Calling him dumb boy does not only express frustration. It can also show a moment of self-respect, where she stops idealizing the person she liked and begins to see the situation more realistically. The playful wording keeps the mood in line with the light style of the song, but underneath it there is a sense of emotional growth. She is no longer only asking for love. She is setting a boundary. In the context of the song, these lines feel like a turning point in her confidence. After experiencing rejection and confusion, she redirects her energy toward herself and her friends. The lyric suggests that part of learning about love is knowing when to walk away, showing that strength can come from choosing self-worth over chasing someone who does not return the same feelings. The members are also tapping their head with their index finger during the line, "dumb boy." This gesture adds a playful but pointed layer to the lyric. Tapping the head often suggests that someone is not thinking clearly, so the movement amplifies the teasing tone of the words. It turns the moment into a mix of humor and attitude rather than pure anger. The choreography also shows a shift in confidence. Earlier scenes focus on longing and uncertainty, but this action feels bold and expressive. By using a simple gesture that is easy to recognize, the members make their message clear without needing dramatic expressions. It suggests that they have gained enough self-assurance to call out behavior that does not meet their expectations. Within the song, the playful motion keeps the mood aligned with the bright style of the song, while still showing growth. Instead of staying sad, the girls respond with confidence and a touch of humor, showing that they are learning to move forward with stronger self-respect. The lines, "every night in my dream," "someone who will share this feeling," return to a softer and more reflective tone. Instead of sounding bold or confrontational, the lyric reveals a quiet wish for emotional understanding. "Dreaming every night" suggests that her thoughts about love remain constant, even after moments of rejection or confidence. It shows that beneath her stronger attitude, she still longs for a connection that feels mutual and sincere. Wanting someone who will share this feeling highlights the theme of balance in relationships. Earlier parts of the song focus on her own hopes and imagination, but here the focus shifts toward reciprocity. She is no longer only chasing a fantasy. She wants someone who understands her emotions and meets her at the same level, which reflects emotional growth. In the context of the song, this line softens the mood after the more playful and assertive scenes. It reminds the viewer that confidence and vulnerability can exist at the same time. Even as the girls present a stronger image of themselves, their inner desire for genuine connection remains central to the story, keeping the narrative grounded in honesty and longing. The line, "I'm a fool for love," "a fool for love" brings the story back to a theme that has been present since the tarot imagery of the fool. Calling herself a fool does not sound completely negative here. Instead, it reflects self-awareness about how deeply she feels and how willing she is to keep believing in romance even after confusion or rejection. Repeating the phrase "fool for love" emphasizes acceptance of her own nature. Rather than pretending to be distant or unaffected, she admits that she is someone who falls into emotions easily. This honesty connects to earlier scenes where she takes risks, gives flowers, and openly expresses her feelings. It shows growth from hiding emotions to owning them without shame. This lyric also softens the stronger moments where she appears confident or teasing. It reminds the viewer that her boldness does not erase her sensitivity. By embracing the idea of being a fool for love, she turns vulnerability into strength, suggesting that caring deeply is not weakness, but part of her identity and journey. This scene also takes place back in the dark void with the neon signs above them, which creates a strong contrast with the brighter locations shown earlier. The empty background removes distractions and places full attention on the members and their emotions. The neon lights feel dreamy and slightly surreal, as if the space exists somewhere between imagination and reality. Returning to this setting can suggest that the story is moving inward again. After trying to act confidently in the outside world, the girls are back in a more symbolic space where their thoughts and feelings take center stage. The glowing signs add a sense of reflection, like echoes of the lyrics and the choices they have made throughout the song. The darkness around them also highlights growth. Earlier, the void may have felt lonely or uncertain, but now their presence feels more assured. Standing together under the neon lights shows that even when the world around them is unclear, they've gained a stronger sense of identity and emotional understanding. The chorus is repeated again here twice, but the setting shifts into a bright, dreamlike location. The members and backup dancers perform on a platform in the water, surrounded by soft pink tones. This change in scenery creates a feeling of release after the darker and more uncertain moments earlier in the story. The water reflects light and movement, giving the scene a calm and almost weightless atmosphere. Dancing together in this open space shows a sense of unity and renewed confidence. Unlike earlier scenes where the girls felt unsure or hesitant, the choreography here feels more free and expressive. The pink surroundings add warmth and softness, which can suggest emotional healing and a return to hope after rejection and self-reflection. The setting also blurs the line between fantasy and reality. It feels like a world shaped by their inner emotions rather than a physical place. By placing the chorus in this bright environment, the song highlights growth and acceptance. It shows that even after confusion and heartbreak, they can still embrace joy, movement, and connection with each other while continuing their journey toward love and self-understanding. The line, "I'll give you one last chance," carries a calm but firm tone that reflects emotional boundaries. After moments of longing, confidence, and frustration, this lyric sounds like a final decision rather than a hopeful wish. It suggests that she still cares, but she is no longer willing to wait endlessly. Offering one last chance shows both vulnerability and strength at the same time. This line can also highlight growth and self-respect. Earlier in the story, she seems unsure and easily hurt, yet here she sets a clear limit. The wording implies that she is choosing when and how to continue rather than letting the situation control her emotions. It shows a balance between holding on to hope and protecting herself from further disappointment. Within the song, this lyric fits the brighter and more confident scenes. Even though the setting feels dreamy and soft, the message behind the words is more grounded. It shows that her journey with love has moved from pure imagination towards clearer expectations, where she values honesty and mutual effort instead of one-sided feelings. It ends with the girl alone in her room watching television, bringing the story back to a quiet sense of reality. After the colorful dreamlike scenes and moments of confidence, this ending feels more grounded and still. Sitting alone suggests that the emotional journey has not fully resolved, and the absence of her friends or bright settings creates a softer, more reflective mood. Her sadness in this moment can show the contrast between imagination and real life that appears throughout the scenes. While she experienced hope, determination, and even bold actions, the ending reminds the viewer that growth does not always lead to instant happiness. The room becomes a familiar space where she processes everything that happened, almost like returning to where her daydreams first began. At the same time, the ending does not feel completely hopeless. Being alone allows space for self-reflection, suggesting that she has learned something from her experiences even if love did not turn out the way she expected. The quiet image leaves the story open, showing that her journey with emotions and self-understanding is still continuing beyond the final scene. The title card reveals that the full name of the song is The Beginning Cupid. This detail can feel ironic when looking at what happened to the group after the song was released. The song focuses on hope, new feelings, and emotional growth, Yet the real-life story of the group soon became complicated. A few months later, the members became involved in a legal conflict with their company. In the end, only Kina remained connected to the original group while the other members moved forward separately. Because of this, the phrase "the beginning" can be interpreted in two different ways. It represents the start of a love journey and personal discovery. Outside of the narrative, it almost feels like the beginning of a major turning point for the group itself. This contrast adds an unexpected layer of meaning to the ending, since the hopeful tone of the song stands beside the reality that the original lineup would soon change. The ending card does not only close the scenes, it also leaves a reflective feeling, where the idea of a beginning becomes more complex when seen through everything that followed. And that wraps up the breakdown for the Cupid music video. From the tarot symbolism to the changing outfits and lyrics, every small detail helps tell a story about dreaming, growing, and learning through love, showing both the excitement of new feelings and the quiet moments of doubt that come with them. Did you notice any details or meanings that stood out to you while watching? There are many ways to interpret the scenes, so feel free to share your own perspective and theories in the comments. Cupid ended up being very successful and charted in many countries around the world. The song grew steadily through social media and word of mouth, reaching listeners far beyond the original fanbase of the group. Its soft sound and relatable lyrics helped it connect with a wide audience, which allowed the track to rise on global charts and streaming platforms. This success added another layer to the meaning of the song. While the story focuses on personal feelings and small emotional moments, the real-world response showed how strongly people related to that message. Seeing the song chart internationally also marked an important milestone for the group, since it brought major attention to the group and introduced their style to new listeners. Looking back at the breakdown, the popularity of Cupid makes many of the scenes feel even more meaningful. The themes of hope, vulnerability, and growth reached a global stage. Which K-pop music video should be analyzed next? Leave your suggestions in the comments and share the ones that you think have interesting stories or hidden details worth exploring. Your ideas help decide what breakdown comes next and make the discussion more fun for everyone watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you do not miss future analyses. Thank you for watching and for being part of the conversation. See you in the next breakdown.